Okay, this part of the series is just going to be about this one Bible verse and all these things surrounding it. And well, there are two more verses you'll see, but this is Psalm 105, verse 15. And this is used so many times, it's misapplied. So I'll read this one, and there's another one like it. So this goes on. I could read, I'll just do this part too. He permitted no one to do them wrong. Yes, he rebuked kings for their sakes. So let me see real quick. Yeah, this is saying this about Israel. Okay, so at the time that was the thing. So the whole thing is about this. Okay, so yeah, here, when they went from one nation to another is another example. From one kingdom to another people, he permitted no one to do them wrong. Yes, he rebuked kings for their sakes, saying, do not touch my anointed ones and do my prophets no harm. So, in context here, who was the anointed and who were the prophets? It was the whole congregation of Israel, it was the whole assembly of Israel who was being rebuked and warned not to touch them. It was the surrounding kings and their nations that were, some of them, seeking to harm them. Okay, so that's the context of this. Obviously, they take this out of context so many times. Now I'm going to jump over here. Let me see. I think this is the first one. Yeah, first. Yeah, this is the same verse. I'm just going to read it. It's First Chronicles 16, and this is David's song of thanksgiving, and when they put the ark in the tabernacle back then. So he's just kind of singing a song of thanksgiving and praise here. It's the same idea, when they went from one nation to another and from one kingdom to another people, he permitted no man to do them wrong. So you see, it's the same context. Yes, he rebuked kings for their sakes, saying, do not touch my anointed ones and do my prophets no harm. It's the same context. The anointed and the prophets were the congregation of Israel coming through into the land, going through the wilderness. And the warning was for the kings and the surrounding nations. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to go to the next one, last one. So now this is, excuse me. This is the history of David after he was anointed king, but before he actually rose to the throne as king. Okay, it took some time, and that's a type as well of Jesus. But here, 1 Samuel chapter 26, and I'm just going to read from 22 down for the context of this, and then I'll explain it. And David answered and said, here is the king's spear. Oh, wait, let me start up here. 21. Now, Saul, that was the guy who was king before David, okay, who Samuel first anointed, and then he had to go. And that's a long story. We'll get there soon. But here, then Saul said, I have sinned. Return, my son David, for I will harm you no more, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Indeed, I have played the fool and erred exceedingly. And David answered and said, Here is the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and get it. May the Lord repay every man for his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord delivered you into my hand today, but I would not stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. And indeed, as your life was valued much this day in my eyes, so let my life be valued much in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, May you be blessed, my son David. You shall both do great things and also still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Okay, what this whole thing is about, and we'll see this when we get to the history part, is David was in hiding during the time in between when he was anointed king, but he didn't take the throne for some time. And in that in between time, part of the time he was kind of hiding out in the wilderness, in caves and so on. And Saul, who was the anointed king at the time, but his days were numbered. Samuel had anointed David. They were just waiting. And anyway, Saul knew his time was up, and he knew David was the new one, and he was jealous. So he sought to harm David. So Saul went out to harm David and was hunting with an army looking for David to hurt him, to kill him, because of envy. So he was looking in the caves, and he didn't find David. But something funny happened. At one point, Saul, the king at the time, he was in this hunting phase looking for David. And all of a sudden, he has to go to the bathroom, So he goes into a cave, and then maybe it was a longer cave, stoops down and does his business, right? And guess who's in that cave? Probably had to be further back somewhere. This happened to be the one where David was in, further back. So David creeps up behind Saul. Saul has no idea that David is there in this one. He doesn't have the slightest clue that David is in here. And David had a weapon. He could very easily have offed Saul, and that would have been the end of his troubles, right? And I guess he was tempted to do this, and then he was held back from it. Oh, yeah. And he only cut off a part of his robe to prove it later while he was stooping down. He didn't notice this. So, David cuts off a part of his robe, Saul's robe, and then goes back in there. And he doesn't kill Saul. And then Saul gets up, leaves the cave, goes outside, and later on finds out, I forgot how this all came to be, but he eventually found out that his life was in the hands of David, and David could have killed him, but he didn't kill him out of mercy. So that's why he's very thankful to David. And David shows him the robe part, like, see, you were that close to me. I could have done it, but this proves it, that I didn't do it. And then he's thankful to him, and, but the whole time he's very two-faced, Saul, so we'll see that when we get there. But David, while he's turning this over in his mind, should he kill him or not, then this comes to him, like, not to do this because of that. Like, at the time, Saul was considered the Lord's anointed king, even though David was really the Lord's anointed king, but he just had to wait his time. So it was like, I'm not going to hurt that king right now. I'll wait till my time and then I'll reign. And, um, you know, take his rightful place when the time comes, you know. So that's what this is all in reference to about not touching the Lord's anointed. That's it. That's all it's about. I know everybody was waiting for some other big thing to come out of this. That's it. That's all it was. So when leaders in the, let me do my little quotes here, church, okay, they will use these verses, that verse over there. That's all it refers to is this. They will twist that verse to no end to abuse the church, okay? And I have seen videos of pastors who people all looked up to down in Southern California. I'm just going to say the name of the town. One example was the town of Costa Mesa. Yep, that place. I have seen, you heard these people, they would say things like this, quote this, when there were investigators investigating them for abuse, because there was abuse going on. There was sexual abuse going on. Yeah, even there. And then they whip out this verse, touch not the Lord's anointed and do his prophets no harm, to get rid of the, people that were asking questions. It's like, oh, it's okay that people get sexually violated. That's not there's nothing wrong with that, but just don't bother the big pastor about it. Wow. And the reason they did this is because they had, revealed it or exposed it or came to the leadership with what had happened, and nobody had done anything about it. So they had to take it to the next level, which was legal. And then, they come with this. See, they use this to abuse. They use this to oppress. They use this to manipulate. What they don't realize, or they don't want you to know this, we are all the Lord's anointed. We are all his prophets. We are all the church. We are all in the priesthood of believers. Okay, every single one of us. There's nobody who's more anointed, who has a special role that's elevated above the others. That's against the New Testament, so that's wrong. We are all in that group. When they hurt us, they are hurting the Lord's anointed and doing his prophets harm. They are hurting us. That's how that works, see? So you can quote that right back to them then. That's what they're doing. And they think that they're above the law. They think that they're above correction. And that's why if something is wrong, they need to deal with it. They can't hide behind this verse. That would be like a criminal robs a bank and then he goes and hides, in a garage somewhere, and the law comes after him, the police find him and drag him out. And then he would whip out this verse, oh, don't hurt me. Well, look what you just did. Now you are a criminal and you have to pay for your crimes. That's how it works in the church as well. Okay, nobody can hide behind this and be exempt and be above correction and be above the law. Absolutely not. And there's so much abuse that wrongfully goes on in the name of these things that they cover themselves with this stuff. They give themselves a buffer. They give themselves a false elevation on a pedestal. And it's, the sin of the Nicolaitans, the clergy above the laity, the control, the manipulation, all the abuse, everything. They're just manipulating. They're just controlling. They wouldn't have anything if it wasn't, the people weren't brainwashed. And it was made so in their eyes that this person is higher, and they're going along with it. And it needs to stop, because that's also enabling this to continue. So anyway, they take it out of context. So again, we are all the Lord's anointed as the Christian church. We may not all have the gift of prophecy, but the point is we all have a spiritual gift. We're all ministers. We're all in the priesthood of believers. So we're the ones that are the anointed and the prophets, and nobody should be harming anyone, and nobody is above anyone, and nobody is above the law. Nobody is above correction, and nobody is above God's word. So that's the end of the matter. And that's it. The context of this was just David not killing Saul. So this had nothing to do with exposing error, which we need to do as Christians in the church, exposing sin, which we need to do as Christians in the church, and exposing abuse and putting a stop to it, which we need to do as the Christian church. So all of that needs to happen, and don't ever let anyone silence you or oppress you or bully you into silence or submission. Don't ever let them do that. You just keep blowing the trumpet until it's all exposed and revealed, and that's it. It's one of those things. If you keep silent, you'll be an enabler, and there'll be more victims later. And then you're kind of an accomplice, you see. So you have to sound the alarm on all of this. Anything you know, expose it, address it, confront it, refute it, rebuke it, whatever you have to do. Okay, so that's our calling. We're the salt, we're the light, and we need to do this. Nobody else is going to do it for us. Most of the time, it's just us. I have been one of the few doing these things. I myself did not experience abuse. I've always been a very strong person. It would be hard for them, but I've seen it. I've heard about it. I know it. It happens. It's being exposed big time. But I have refuted heresy and all that, exposed what's happening in the apostasy, with them hijacking the church in all these directions. I've exposed all that, and I will continue to do that, refuting false teachings and all of that kind of thing. So that's our job. Okay, so you go out and you do it, and you take this is the sword of the word of God, and you do it. Okay, this is the context of that. So don't let them twist that. Now you have this in your belt, okay, your toolkit. So now you know, and those are the only places it mentions that. See, I looked this up. So that's it. Okay. I hope this has helped you. I hope this has set you free and encouraged you in any way, hopefully in many ways. So, okay, we need to be vigilant, because the visible church has turned into just a ferocious wolf, okay? And Jesus cares for his sheep, so you need to know that. All right, okay. So when I go through the history part, it'll be interesting too. But that's it for now. So that will close out this video, and I'll be right back with the next one.